The terrific Tim Murtagh caused yet more problems for an opposing side as he bowled Middlesex into a very strong position at the supposed halfway stage of their LV County Championship match against strugglers Somerset. Middlesex was still batting on 293 for 8 at the end of a roller coaster of a first day in Taunton, and Neil Dexter, who resumed his innings on 73, soon had his side at 300 for a third batting bonus point. Dexter was denied his first 100 of the summer by Jamie Overton. On 82, he pulled the 19-year-old quick, but only found Alfonso Thomas, who took a good catch in the deep. That was a first fifer for Overton, but in spite of a real effort from him, he was finding Middlesex's last man Murtagh a more difficult one to bounce out. Murtagh has to be right up there with the best number 11s on the circuit, and with Tom Smith maintaining his solid defence at one end, he was able to play a few shots to really frustrate the Somerset attack. Overton received a warning for this delivery, which Murtagh did really well to get his body out of the way of and deflect it to the boundary. His partnership with Smith was worth a very handy 38 runs, with Murtagh making 29 of those before he was bowled by a more legitimate and very good ball from Overton, which saw the youngster end with career best figures of 6 for 95. The general thought around the ground was that the 347 that Middlesex had made was about par score on this Taunton pitch, and the day was now going to be all about Somerset batting themselves ahead. There was no real argument against that, as Marcus Trescothick and Arul Sapaya opened up with a stand of 36 in the opening 6.5 overs. But Murtagh started to change the view with 2 big wickets in 2 balls. Trescothick edged behind for 24. Before the inform Alvaro Peterson, with 497 runs from 7 innings this term, was out for a golden duck, although a close view may suggest that the ball flicked his thigh and not his bat on the way through to John Simpson. Chris Rogers took Toby Rowland-Jones off after 3 expensive overs and asked James Harris to charge in, something he did to very good effect by bowling Sapaya through an immaculate-looking defensive shot for 19. That left Somerset on 52 for 3 at lunchtime. And suddenly, run scoring was a real struggle. Harris was perhaps unlucky not to win this appeal for LBW against James Hildreth. Hildreth's typical response to that was to hit the next 2 Harris deliveries for 4s, as his side tried their utmost to bat themselves back into this contest. But rather than thinking about a first innings lead, the home side were left with a follow-on on their minds when the magnificent Murtagh struck again to remove Lewis Gregory for 7 at 71 for 4. A total which soon became 84 for 5 when Hildreth, who'd just been dropped at slip, gave Sam Robson another chance. Murtagh now had 4 and Somerset were in serious strife. They batted poorly, only to be saved by the weather in their last match with Yorkshire, but here the clouds were spread apart, unlike the wickets. Joss Butler was the 6th man out, his leave leading to a catch for David Milan off Rowland-Jones. The follow-on avoidance target was 198, but Somerset now slipped to 114 for 7 as Thomas gave Milan more catching practice with a nick off Gareth Berg. And when Jack Leach followed 7 runs later, bowled around his legs by Rowland-Jones, Somerset had an uphill task ahead of them. It's an odd fact really that this super talented batting side has been finding the art of accumulating runs this summer a very difficult one. They ended their last match on 61 for 6 after following on, and the only way they were going to avoid batting again next was for Peter Trigo to find some batting form at last. For 45 minutes, he received some solid support from his opening bowling partner, Steve Kirby, as this pair added 28. But they needed many more and were denied those by Dexter, who bowled Trigo for a season's best 34. And he then had Kirby taken behind. With Murtagh taking 4 for 28 at the top of the order, Somerset were all out for 152 to trail by 195. In Somerset's last match at home, Trescothick had the opportunity to make Warwickshire follow on. He didn't do that and failed to win. Rogers did and celebrated immediately, as Murtagh did it again with his 3rd ball, Sapaya getting his 3rd duck in his last 4 innings. Murtagh was outstanding. He stands in a small list of cricketers who deserve to have played at the Test level, but who hasn't. As he dismissed someone as good as Peterson for the 2nd time in a few hours, you could see that he's probably still good enough too. He was backed up well by the others, and Harris then got Trescothick to send a leading edge to Berg to leave the home side in a horrible mess on 11 for 3 second time around. The follow-on was a spot-on decision this time, and Middlesex were perhaps even contemplating a 2-day win. The home side's chairman, Andy Nash, had tweeted a suggestion that his side would hit 500 in their second innings, but instead they found themselves on 20 for 4 when Murtagh won an LBW decision against Gregory for his 7th wicket of an extraordinary day. And would you believe it, he then claimed an 8th in only his 18th over of a day he later described as one of the best of his career. Hildreth was held by Milan to leave Somerset on 35 for 5. And there were still 22 overs of this amazing day left. Plenty of time to be back on the M4 to London, especially with an out-of-sorts Trigo back in only 13 overs after he'd last been dismissed. He decided the best plan of attack was to attack, something he does so brilliantly in the one-day game, and with Butler supporting him well, Somerset stopped the horrible rot and managed to get through the rest of the day unscathed. Trigo even got to his first 50 of the 4-day summer. It took him only 54 balls, quite a response to the mayhem that had ensued. He struck 7 fours in that and at least taken the game into a third day. It was a much-needed counter-attack in the Somerset sunshine from Trigo, who is the kind of player who can turn matches on their heads, although he still has much to do that. Barring the remarkable day 3 will be the last one, Middlesex look nailed on to return to the top of the championship table, having reduced their host to 112 for 5 second time around, leaving them still 83 runs behind. But you know, games have been won from this position. Perhaps Trigo, who has 58, is the next IT Botham.